Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the GX3 Media Podcast. This is Nate Byer telling you, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. We're going to hit on some week 2 football scores, but we also need to lament some of our failures going into the second week of the football season. Now, again, I want to make sure that everybody understands there's more to life than football. It's just easiest to try to track scores and repeat scores here. Trust me, I've looked at what happened in volleyball last week. Most teams played big tournaments and probably played upwards of 8 to 10 matches over the course of a couple days. I can't track all of those scores, nor will I read all of those scores. Those will put you to sleep. Some teams won more than others. That's, I think, what we need to remember. Eventually, I'd like to find a way to get scores in, but we'll see how it goes. Football just makes it the easiest. Again, one game a week. I wouldn't mind having 2 games a week, though. Anyways, I'm going to hit on some scores. I'm going to talk about some of, like I said, my failures. My failures up to this point, this fall. I guess it's still summer, but we're going to call the fall sports season. My failures definitely include not seeing any golf or tennis to this point. Trust me, that bothers me a lot. Every year I have dreams, big dreams, hopes, high hopes of not forgetting about our friends who play tennis and our friends who play golf. Trust me, there are athletes that put in a lot of time for golf and tennis, and we haven't seen them. It's not because I don't want to see them, it's because the timing hasn't really worked out well. And part of it has come down to me really wanting to hold on to summer with both hands and all 10 toes as tightly as possible. So to give up, even uh, 2 or 3 hours to chase a tournament here or there, it's tough because it's 2 or 3 hours of watching golf or tennis, followed by something else later that day. My day gets devoured pretty quickly that way. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to help inform people how I'm trying to manage and balance my life. Now that we're going to start school. Okay, so today is September 1st. I've been away for a couple days because it's been a holiday weekend. I played volleyball all day on Saturday, so I couldn't get to our kind of week 2 recap because I had to get out of the house at the crack of dawn on Saturday and drive to. I thought it was going to be a relatively easy drive. I was told this tournament, oh yeah, we're going to play in Arkansas. Okay, not the state, but the town, which is by Durand. I'm familiar enough with that area. But then I looked at the map, well, once I got pretty close, and I noticed it's not really there. It's actually very kind of in between Pepin and Arkansas, out in the middle of nowhere. It was cool. Don't get me wrong, it was cool. But I would have plotted my timing a little bit differently, or I would have plotted my route just a little differently if I would have truly paid attention to the address. I'm not one to let the phone tell me where to go. I'm going to look at the address. I'm going to see where it wants me to go, and then I'll try to find a different route to get there. Or I use landmarks, I use other things. I don't want, I mean, I want to know where I'm going, which means I'm going to look at a map, and I love finding different ways to do things with my maps. Maps have always fascinated me. I think part of what I get to do is understanding maps, or at least at one point, I had to figure out how do you get to Platteville from Wilton? What is the best way to find yourself in a place like Blanchardville is a good one. Durand's another good one. Like, how do you actually get there? I mean, shoot, I even remember my first trip to Whitehall, which was at this point in time about 15 years ago, and really having to study the map because I didn't have a smartphone at the time and trying to figure out how to get to that location. Now it's a breeze, and I could do it probably 7 or 8 different ways, each of which is a relatively similar distance from home. But back then, it was wild. And because I had never been there before, again, whenever you go to a new place, everything is new, everything is fresh, everything is is interesting. And now, I mean, it's just different with how you've kind of how I've settled in to some of those trips. Anyways, we had to put this off. We're gonna do it today. It is definitely September, and it has felt like September for about the past week. Our temperatures have dropped a little bit. It has felt cooler. The most unfortunate things I saw were this, or have been this in the past week. My neighbor's tree is now brownish. I mean, her tree tends to lose leaves early, but I mean, losing leaves at any point in time, that's a signal of what's to come. And I'm not going to use the F word outside of talking about a particular sports season. But hearing those dry, crispy leaves brush across the concrete out in front of the house is very disconcerting. I've I've taken advantage of the bike trail, which is about a block from my house. I've noticed we have sumac that's popping different colors. It used to be green, and now I've got reds and oranges. Not vibrant reds and oranges, but we're getting there. And the other thing that I hated to see is our corn, which I remember being this very lush green for so many weeks. Yeah, it's starting to dry out. It's starting to go into that fall brown color, fall brown color. I was trying to think of other words in there, so I just didn't say brown. I was going to say bronzy color, and I'm pretty sure I mixed all my words together. Anyways, um, that was the last week, and we're probably gonna. Well, now that kids are going to go back to school tomorrow, we're probably going to have some increased temperatures because usually kids go back to school and then it gets hot again. So the schools without air conditioning have to deal with kids melting throughout the day. I feel like that's usually what happens. When it comes to sports, we're gonna expand our sports coverage now this week because we have a relatively stable schedule day to day. Relatively, mostly kids go back to school. I get excited because we can't really do sporting things during those early morning hours. And I think that's very helpful for me. That means that I can actually try to get some work done while I'm at home and actually have some home time where I can breathe, recover, recuperate, maybe mow some lawn or do some outside things. Again, I really like my fall mornings. Oh, shoot, I just said fall. Sorry about that. I tried not to. It's coming though. We still have about 20 days, if I'm correct, of summer. So let's take advantage of it. Let's enjoy it for what it is. We've got great stuff coming weather-wise. There's never a bad day to be outside, I don't think, for the next 2 months or so. Fall is excellent. I'm just not ready for it. This past week, we celebrated our second week of the high school football season. I ended up, I did pretty well. I think I ended up at 5 games, two on Thursday, three on Friday. Logan hit 1 game on Thursday, two on Friday. That was, that counts for 8 games for us. I was pretty happy with that. And the way that we did these games, the results that we ended up with, honestly, I know I talked a lot about my problems in week one. I didn't necessarily have those same type of problems in week two. I actually thought I was going to. Actually, on Thursday, I thought that it was going to go very, very sideways, but it didn't. And even Friday, I pulled off a pretty risky maneuver to hit 3 games, and it actually went the way I needed it to. So I'm not going to complain. All right, we're going to read through a couple of conference scores. Okay, I want to get used to this, practicing reading through some scores because I think even if you know the scores already, I need practice getting through these. Let's start this week. Let's start in the South. All right. Let's go to the Six Rivers. We've got 3 teams that are now 2-0. Blackhawk, Potosi Castle, and the Seneca Wazeeka Steuben Co-op are all 2-0. Blackhawk beat Westby 36-22. Potosi held off Richland Center 32-27. And the Seneca Wazeeka Steuben Co-op topped Ithaca, again, a former conference rival, 43-14. Iowa Grant beat neighboring Dodgeville 41-40. I bet you that was a lot of fun. Fenimore beat River Ridge 24-22. Again, that's kind of a neighboring rivalry a little bit there. I don't think they have usually played ball, but again, that sounds like an interesting game. And then we got 3 teams in the Six Rivers that are now 0-2. Southwestern beat Boscobel 48-0, Waterloo blanked Peck Argyle 36-0, and Hillsborough defeated Riverdale 27-8. If we kind of keep moving our way up, let's go into the Swall. Darlington went to 2-0 after beating Prairie du Chien 26-14, and I'll repeat myself. Fenimore beat River Ridge 24-22. Platteville got its first win of the year, defeating Mineral Point 41-14. I like it when the numbers are inverted. It's a little quip or a little take of mine that I like. Southwestern again beat Boscobel 48-0. New Glarus defeated Belleville 10-6. A lot of scoring in that game. Benton Scales Mount Sholzberg jumped the border into Illinois, beat Stockton, Illinois 46-0, and Lancaster beat Cuba City 34-7. So, where did I choose? How did we choose games on Thursday? We still had a lot of good Thursday games. I it was really hard for me to bounce from a couple of different games. Why? Because the games are good and I like the matchups and I like the teams that we could see. The one that was the hardest for me to avoid was CFC at Royal. Why? Because number one, Royal is my school, so I like to see them play ball. Two, it's a Thursday, so it's a free chance to see them without necessarily having to pair it up with another game. And three, I love working with the CFC kids. So it would have been a great opportunity. Doesn't matter who won or who lost. I would have had an entire night watching that game. Well, I split on that, knowing that I can work CFC in later, knowing that we do have Royal on a Saturday. They are at Ithaca for homecoming, I think in week 7 or 8 later this year. And I saw that I had a Thursday game up at Regis, and Regis is a team that I don't always get a chance to see. It's a little, it's not so much fringe, but again, when they give me a Thursday game, boom, I'm going to show up. And I'm glad I did. I went to Regis, watched them play Bloomer. I enjoy going to Carson Park for games. It's a cool atmosphere. I love the Thursday night atmosphere. And it was a beautiful Thursday night. I mean, it was a tip top Thursday night. The game it went a little sideways. I think it was like 22-0 right before halftime. I had prepared myself to stay there the entire time. And I've actually felt like I shot the game pretty well for both teams by the time we got to the end of by the time we got even to the middle of the second quarter. And I said, I think I need to bail. I think I need to jump out of this. I need to go do something else. Now, I know Eau Claire North was at home. Chippewa Falls was at home against Eau Claire Memorial. I thought about going to either one of those because they're close. But I chose to go towards home to stop at Osseo Fairchild. I haven't been to an Osseo Fairchild football game for a couple of years, I don't think. I definitely haven't been to their field in a while, and I'll tell you why. Their lights are terrible. So for me, working when you have lights that are ancient, it's tough. I gave it a good old college try, but I had very low expectations. Number one, lights were bad. Number two, I knew that the game was pretty one-sided. I think it was 28-0 at halftime. Maybe it was 35-0 at halftime. Either way, it was a blowout. And I knew that most likely I would be seeing a running clock second half. How much can you really get done with a running clock second half? The answer is not much, unless you get a little lucky. And that's where I felt like I did. They played Glenwood City. I expected them to do what most teams do, which is, well, we're up X amount of points. We're going to pull our starters and only play our JVs. And actually, I'm really glad that they didn't. Number one, it is a varsity contest. You know, your JVs, they can play on Mondays. Your varsity should get the lion's share of everything when it comes to your Friday night activities. I don't care. And did they do much, their varsity, in that second half? No, they really didn't. I think I saw them score once. Maybe, again, I saw them score once, I think. But again, everybody's got to work on stuff. You can't just play a quarter and then, just because the lead is large, pull your kids out. Because the only way to really simulate football is to play football. I think it's evident from the NFL on down, preseason games when you're not actually playing anybody or you're not actually taking snaps or getting hit. It's hard for you to really get adjusted or acclimated to that. Again, I have no problem at the varsity level. If you're up and you leave your varsity in, as long as you're working on stuff and trying to figure things out, there's nothing wrong with that because you have to learn. And the only way to learn is to be able to do it. Anyways, I came away feeling really good about that game. Like I said, it was running clock. It was a blowout ball game, but I think it did pretty well for both teams, all things considered. Why? Because I got to see each team carry the ball a couple times. I saw Glenn would like to throw the ball a little bit. I saw some passes and some catches, or at least I saw the quarterback go back to throw. I saw linemen push people around. I saw guys get tackled in the open field. It gave me good photographic opportunities. So those are the things that I like to talk about. There was action that wasn't all just congested in a pile of bodies in the middle of the field. It was good for me. I felt good. I felt really good. Came home, dropped some photos that night. I think I prepared myself for Friday. I went through my map Friday morning. I plotted out the last 8 weeks of the season. So I had at least again, so when people like to ask how I choose games, how do I choose games? I write it all down by hand because there's some process that happens when, as you write a thing down by hand, that it travels into your brain. It sticks in my brain a little differently. As technologically advanced as we might be, we still need to have that tactile feeling of writing things out. I think it's important. Like even today, I went through all my scores here and I write them down by hand. Number one, it helps me remind myself what teams I'm looking for, and it helps me study. Not that I was ever the greatest of studiers in school, but I know that I need to make sure to write things down. Again, it helps the processor. It really does. So I wrote down 8 weeks of schedules for about 10 conferences. And from there, I will pick and choose, starting with teams who play on Thursdays and Saturdays kind of get first dibs. If I can see you on a Saturday or a Thursday, that means I can bounce on a Friday. No, I can save a Friday for somebody else. All of my schools that do Saturday homecomings in the southern half of my coverage area, bless your beautiful hearts. I know I express that every year when I go to Highland for their homecoming. I try to do the same thing at Ithaca. I've really enjoyed going to Pecatonica for their homecoming the last couple of years. We've made it to Blackhawk once or twice for their homecoming. I know that there are others. I think Benton used to do a Saturday homecoming. I love these things. I wish everybody or more would do them. There's nothing better than a Saturday homecoming game, especially late September, early October. It's a really cool atmosphere. And if you're going to say, we play Friday night football, we play Friday night football under the lights. Yeah, guess what? You can do it on Saturday too. It doesn't matter. If you can build a culture around it, you can build a culture around it. If you think you can do it, you can do it. You're providing your fans a different opportunity, but I think more importantly, homecoming is for alumni. You're not going to get the same type of alumni back Friday night as you will on Saturday. And when I see the participation from alumni in some of these other homecoming activities in these schools, they're doing homecoming the right way because they're involving the alumni. And without alumni, what's the point of homecoming? Anyways, scheduling. I schedule these games out, looking at Thursdays, looking at Saturdays. This week I was tipped off to a Thursday game that I hadn't been able to get to this part of my scheduling. Hey, I'm going to go to Iowa for a Thursday game this week. I'm going to jump the river as long as the bridge is still open in Lansing. And I'm going to go watch the Key Boys play some school in Iowa. I know I looked up the name. I just forgot what it was for the time being. Anyways, I'm looking forward to it. It's great. It's a Thursday night activity. And I think it starts at 6. So that means at least the first half will be complete, like cool, sunny daylight. And then after that, it'll kind of fade away. But either way, we have a Thursday night game. I've got a Saturday morning game this coming week. I believe Osseo Fairchild is at Regis this Saturday morning. It's Regis's big party in the park thing. I think I was up there last year for it. Again, it was a cool event for that school community. They show up at the park, or Carson Park. They've got activities and other things, I think, after the game gets over. But again, it's a cool community event for that school. And I always love those. Anyways, let's go through a couple more scores and I'll kind of hit you up about what happened on Friday and how we managed that. All right, so we started in the south. Let's keep working from our southern area to our north. Let's go to the south central. So the south central, you still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are 0-2. They're going to win games next week. Somebody has to. There's only 1 2-0 team, and that's Waupun, because Waupun beat New Holstein 35-34, it looks like. Berlin beat Kiel 28-7, and Ripon beat Clintonville 54-6. So those last two teams, Berlin and Ripon, are now 1-1. But your 0-2 teams, well, Northland Pines beat Adams Friendship 21-20. Sparta beat Mauston 35-0. Westfield over Nakusa 56-24. I have to read my handwriting. Sometimes it does get a little messy. This one says Poinet beat Watoma 53-13, and River Valley beat Wisconsin Dells 42-17. Again, there's only one 2-0 team in that group, and only 3 out of the 8 schools have a win. In the Southwest Wisconsin Conference, Lancaster beat Cuba City 34-7. New Glarus beat Belleville 10-6. At 1-1, we've got Platteville 41-14 over Mineral Point, and River Valley beat Wisconsin Dells 42-17. I know it feels like I'm repeating a lot of these back to back, but again, we're kind of trying to keep this geographically connected. Potosi beat Richland Center 32-27. And 0-2, Broadhead, Dodgeville, and Prairie du Chien have yet to win a game. Broadhead lost to Evansville 42-16. Dodgeville lost that close game to neighboring Iowa Grant 41-40. Again, that's got to be kind of a fun rivalry matchup. And I'm sure that matchup hasn't happened a lot. So, or at least a lot recently. So that's interesting. And then Darlington beat Prairie du Chien 26-14. Prairie du Chien's 0-2 on the year after losing to Aquinas and Darlington. And that's one of the teams that I would pick on as being an 0-2 team that you just don't want to count them out yet. Once they hit conference play, I think they're going to be okay. So scheduling, let's go to Friday. So Friday, I chose to go north. And I chose to go north because I had an appointment in the afternoon that took me into Arcadia. So if I'm already in Arcadia and I'm going to be there until 5 or 5:30, yeah, my options are limited. But I had a great slate of events. I went to Independence. Independence opened their season. They ended up canceling their week 1 game, but they hosted Cashton. Now, I didn't think it would be a super competitive ball game, and the score reflects that it was not. But it's important for me to try to see teams when I can. And I knew that if I was going to try to pull off 3 games, the old Independence, Whitehall, Blair Taylor run, I mean, that's a very doable run. I wasn't going to be able to stay at Independence very long. I gave them all the warm-up stuff. I sat through 2 series for Cashton and 1 series of Independence. By the time I left, I believe the score was 14-0 in favor of Cashton. Okay, great. That's what I expected to happen. I needed to pick up some Cashton photos for our newspaper publications. And I did get a chance to see Independence do something. Is it the best I can do? Probably. It's really tough. It's really tough when I'm trying to balance all of the schedules, when I'm trying to see somebody. If there's an opportunity that comes up where we can see him again, we'll do that. But at least I know that I tried. At least we tried. You know, what's a series? A series is better than not showing up at all. And I love that field. That field is, I've been there a number of times. I think about every other year, the past like 6 years or so. I've been there even like 10, 15 years ago, going there for like a week 2 game where the sun's setting and it's throwing shadows across the field, and the hillside behind the visitor sideline is filled with corn. And I love that cornfield feel. When you look to the north, you have these rolling hills and these fields of corn, just the gold of the tasseled corn. It creates an interesting environment, something that you'll never find. If I go to La Crosse Central, you're never going to get it there. It's a really sterile environment. If I go to Highland, I get that type of environment because you've got, again, fields just beyond the school boundaries. I love that type of stuff. To me, that really makes small school football interesting and compelling, peaceful almost in a way, just because of the environment. You lose something when it's just when you have as much as, like I said earlier, I like Carson Park and Eau Claire, but you're not really surrounded by anything other than other structures, other man-made, not natural structures. And I think we do lose something when we bury our games around those things. Anyways, Independence to Whitehall to Blair Taylor. Can I do it? Could I do it? The answer is, yeah, I think we could. And I think we can. And let's see what happens. So I did Independence, ran to Whitehall, made myself a parking spot, I ended up watching the entire the entire second quarter. Whitehall hosted Arcadia. That's an interesting, like, cross county rivalry. Trempealeau County has a lot of schools, by the way. If you aren't familiar, you should look at the map and see how many schools actually exist inside the Trempealeau County borders. It's pretty cool. Anyways, I thought it was a good ball game. It was 0-0 when I got there. I think Whitehall went up first because of a pick six. Arcadia came back, ran the ball angry, drove it in the end zone. Um, I believe, if I remember my scoring plays right, Whitehall came back, scored again, so they went up. And then I think I saw Arcadia score again on a big running touchdown. Um, I thought it was an interesting ball game. The final ended up being 30-20. I got good stuff, even though I was only there for a quarter. And usually I'm going to panic. And I was panicking because I didn't want to show up at Blair Taylor and, for my third stop and only see a quarter of a ball game. I was prepared for that. I really was. But I'm glad I went to Whitehall. Again, it's another place that I try to get to early in the season because their lights are pretty wretched. Lights do not do a lot of helping anybody see what's on the field. So if I can see that early, great. And then I went to Blair Taylor. Like I said, I got there and it was the middle of halftime. Actually, I think it was on the early part of halftime. They had Elmwood Plum City. I watched what may have been like the longest third quarter in existence. And really, it probably wasn't, but it felt like that third quarter took forever. Blair Taylor liked to pass the ball. And when I say liked to pass the ball, I feel as though they only passed the ball. So the clock stopped all the time. EPC ended up scoring. They were down 19-0. They scored. They kind of kept a little bit of pressure on, so the game really wasn't ever completely out of hand. If things would have went the wrong way here or there, they really could have made it more interesting. Anyways, I was thrilled to watch an entire half at one location. And I think that what I shot reflected that. I got good stuff. There's one play that I wish, I'm going to talk about it in a separate cast we're going to do today, talking about, our top photos of the week. But I had a series where I'm watching for the back of the end zone. Blair Taylor makes a throw to the corner of the end zone. It's a nice catch. It's a nice little, bobbled. I've got a defender on the receiver, makes the catch, scores. There's a flag, so the whole thing doesn't count. I'm going to keep that series of photos, despite the fact that that play doesn't really count. Again, it was a challenging photograph to capture simply because of the lens I was using, the location, the movement. The fact of the matter was, it was really tight in the frame, so I didn't have a lot of wiggle room. I had to follow the play really intelligently, and I thought that I did. Anyways, watching an entire half, really nice for me. Really gives me an opportunity to see things. So I felt really good about that stop. And that was my Friday. That was a pretty good Friday. 3 games in a night. I will take it. Especially knowing what I came away with, which was a pretty good representation of each team at every stop. And that's always important to me. We're going to go through a couple more reads here because I've got 6 more conferences of stuff to get through. That's tough. So let's start with our miscellaneous teams. Now that we're going from our southern to our northern, my miscellaneous teams include a couple 8-man scores. Athens over Thorpe, 52-12. I got to remember to keep my Thorpe kids involved because I do have a good following there, and people do appreciate me when I do show up, and that's a heck of a drive for me. So McDonald beat Clayton 66-0. Rochholt beat Lincoln 26-14. Let's go to the Ridge and Valley Conference. Oh, look at this. Belmont 48-6 over St. John's Northwestern Academies. Highland 54, Williams Bay 22. North Crawford 86, Montello 6. DeSoto and Kickapoo Lafarge, neither one played. DeSoto had Princeton and Green Lake cancel on them, I think, and Kickapoo Lafarge canceled on Oakfield. I hate when teams cancel on teams. I think it's a bad look, but the landscape of football continues to change, and the lack of numbers in football really has forced the WIA to make certain changes to try to prevent that from happening. But it's still going to happen. 11-man, 8-man, it doesn't matter. There just aren't enough kids out for football. and our schools haven't adapted to finding a way to get kids out for football or adapting their plans to prevent cancellations from happening. Elkhart Lake Glenbeulah 54-14 over Monticello. Valley Christian 35, Waniwak Center 8. That's our Ridge and Valley scores from last week. I've got 5 conferences to go. We're going to do those a little bit later because we're kind of getting into the meat of the stuff that I cover, mostly because it's closer to home. Anyways, like I said, 3 games on a Friday night is good. Now, I sent Logan to Viroqua on Thursday to watch Viroqua and Brookwood. I thought it was a good opportunity for either team. Doesn't matter who won, who wins, who won did. Okay. It didn't matter who was going to win because wins are probably going to be limited for either team. We're going to get a good game out of it simply because those 2 teams are pretty even. And that's exactly what we got. I think Viroqua led 8-0 at halftime. Brookwood scored 20 unanswered in the second half, and they won 20-8. And there's a really cool photo that Logan pulled off. She sent me a photo of it. Where was I at? Yeah, that's right. I was at Regis. And maybe I ended up getting or receiving that photo when I was at Osseo, and I saw this thing, and I said, what did you do? You might as well just quit for the night. She felt really good about this leaping touchdown. It was a good photo. It really was. Now, we've discussed some ways to make the photo better, but again, that's part of the critique that we're going to do. Again, that's why I think we're going to do this top 5 photo thing in a different episode later today that will release later this week, simply because I think people are fascinated to know why we pick the photos we pick. And I really want to touch base. I really want to touch base with that photograph because it's a really cool, unique shot. I'm happy for her when she pulls off cool things. And I know that she had a heck of a week with some of her other work obligations. I'm really glad that she had a win. She had a good game too. So when you get a good game, you have to celebrate. And she did the best way possible by celebrating with a remarkable photograph. Boom, game over for her. She's never going to she probably will never match that the rest of the season. Again, you're chasing that white whale. We want another one. As photographers, that's what we want to do. And on Friday, I sent her to Tomah to watch Tomah and West Salem. She was there for probably the best part of the ball game. In a way, the game was only 9-6 when she left. That's a pretty close, compelling ball game. She ended up in Sparta, watched Sparta and Mauston. I said, I don't love that we're sending you to Tomah. We've already seen West Salem. We saw them last week. And then we photographed Sparta last week. I don't like doing that back to back. However, after I looked at my 9-week map, I said, this is a good time to do it. And then let's take a break from from all those teams and come back in a couple weeks and we can photograph them again. But we can't give any one team 6 or 7 games. I don't care what we are working for, if it's newspaper, if it's for our online media, if it's for whatever. We can't see a team 6 or 7 times. It just doesn't work. The only reason it would work is if everything's a Thursday, everything's a Saturday, and it flows with the other places we're trying to go. Speaking of the Mississippi Valley, let's hit those scores from the Mississippi Valley. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the MVC are 2-0. Now, does that mean everybody's playing great competition? I don't know. We're going to find out next week when we hit conference play in the Mississippi Valley. Holman moved to 2-0 after defeating Sauk Prairie 42-0. La Crosse Logan beat Wausau East 29-21. Onalaska beat Medford 36-0. Reedsburg over to Forest 54-21. That was a Thursday game. I really considered going down to that game just to see what kind of an interesting spectacle it could be. And then Sparta, like I said, beat Mauston 35-0. 0-2. Baraboo, Central, Tomah still have yet to get a win. Baraboo and Tomah play this coming week, if I remember correctly. So one of them will get their first win of the year. Portage beat Baraboo 26-14. Ellsworth beat La Crosse Central 23-21. That was probably a fun ball game. And like I said, West Salem beat Tomah 37-6. Again, Logan was there when it was only 9-6. Interesting. Let's jump into the Coulee. In the Coulee Conference, Aquinas 34, Columbus 13, Arcadia 30, Whitehall 20, West Salem 37, Toma 6. Altoona beat Black River Falls 42-14. Baldwin Woodville hammered GET 44-8. Bangor blew out Luther 40-6. Brookwood over Viroqua 20-8. And Blackhawk beat Westby 36-22. Now, in the Cooley, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 teams that are 0-2. Again, somebody's got to get a win this week. And I know that GET and Luther play each other this coming week. That's one of our possible stops. Westby is at Black River Falls. I think that's a must-go-to stop for us. Somebody's got to get a win. Anyways, like I said, I sent Logan to Toma to Sparta. We try to balance out our map so we don't see the same teams, especially back-to-back weeks. Sometimes you can't help it. I think we have some back-to-backs coming up this week simply because that's how the map works out. The season map and the geographic map. Now, if you pay attention to what the WIA has done the last 5 or 6 years, 7 or 8 years, I forget, whatever. They've taken control of our conferences and they're realigning conferences every couple of years. I actually really, really like the format. I really like that we're doing this. I would just love to stop calling them conferences because they're not. It's more or less, it's a district. And every couple of years, there will be some different permutations of said district. Especially when you look at something like the South Central. And the South Central is a conference that typically it's a 6-school conference. For football, it's an 8-school conference. But you're running from Nakusa, Adams Friendship, Mauston, all the way over to Ripon, Waupun, Berlin. I mean, does it make a lot of sense? I don't think it doesn't make sense. But geographically, those schools aren't familiar with each other the same way. Again, like an Adams Friendship and a Mauston makes sense because of the proximity. But when you're spanning such a wide berth of ground and you don't have a lot of history with that school, it's hard to get behind some of those rivalries. And I understand coaches and schools that don't like the idea of district play. I know that was a big thing, 10, 15 years ago. They don't like the idea of that because you lose some of these rivalries. I get that. But again, what they're trying to do with the conferences to balance everything out based on enrollments makes a lot of sense to me. People are never going to be happy no matter what you do. So you might as well just make a decision and plow forward. Anyways, where was I? I lost my train of thought. Again, we try to see a number of different conferences. We try not to go back to back. Sometimes we can't help it. That's okay. I think that she has a couple of pretty good ball games. It gave us a chance to see Mauston. It gave us a chance to see Toma against a local team instead of Toma against, if we were to go see them play Baraboo next week, that's a good game for Toma, but we don't do much with Baraboo, so it doesn't necessarily pay for us to show up there. It's a little fringe for us, even if they are in the MVC. And choosing, this is where I was trying to go with it. Choosing some of our locations gets to be really tough because we have some of what I like to call weirdo schools in some of our local conferences. And what I mean by that is when I look at the SWAL, for example, sure, I would love to go watch Lancaster play somebody some night, as long as, let's say, Platteville's at home. But let's say, you have the weirdo in that group, sorry, SWAL would, no, let's go SWC. Yeah, sorry, I mixed it up. I'm reading my list wrong. So again, let's look at the SWC. And I'm going to go to Lancaster and Platteville. That's fine. But one's playing Broadhead and one's playing New Glarus. Those are the 2 schools in that league that I don't really do much with. So does it pay for me to show up? Basically, I'm still only seeing 2 different area teams in a night. I'd like to be able to maximize what we do a little bit more than that. It's tough. It's a really tough balancing act, is what I'm trying to get at. I love the puzzle, though. I really love the puzzle. I am not allowed to play Tetris much because I will become addicted to finding different ways to put all those shapes in that puzzle. Tetris and I we get along very well. And I love just trying to find ways to take this jagged edge and smash it into this spot? And how do you make this bar go here and that cube go there? Again, I love it. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with our calendars. It's tough, but it's a puzzle. And I love trying to figure it out. It gets me excited week to week. How can we see as many games as possible? How can we make the best use of our calendar? Yeah, I love it. Let's get to a couple more reads here. Let's go to the Scenic Bluffs. Scenic Bluffs is my home conference. Again, if you aren't aware, I am a product of Royal High School, graduated in 2001. We are celebrating our 25th class and 25th anniversary, whatever, of graduation, something like that. So I'm going to take whatever opportunity I can to kind of play that up. Anyways, Bangor avoided going 0-2 for the first time since, I don't know, 2007, 6, 5, 4, somewhere in there. They beat Luther 40-6. That was a little bit of a surprise score for me. Caston also avoided going 0-2, topping Independence Gilmanton 41-13. Baroquois got their first win, defeating Viroqua 20-8. Ithaca took its first loss, 43-14, to former conference rival Seneca Wazeeka Steuben. Hillsborough moved to 2-0 after beating up on Riverdale 27-8. Melrose Mindoro handed Necedah a 42-0 loss. Partyville topped New Lisbon 63-6, and CFC defeated Royal 41-0. I'm going to use that to transition into the Dairyland. The Dairyland at 2-0. You still have CFC at 41 CFC beating Royal 41-0. You have Blair Taylor beating Elmwood Plum City 35-14, and Melrose Mindoro 42, Necedah 0. Again, those top three schools. I forgot Pepanelma. They also won 36-0 over Wisconsin Rapids Assumption. Okay. You have four schools in the Dairyland left. Oliva Strum beat Colfax 28-0. So now they're 1-1. Arcadia beat Whitehall 30-20. So now Whitehall's 1-1. Augusta lost 52-0 to Turtle Lake. They're 0-2. And Independence lost 41-13 to Caston. They are technically 0-1 because I think they canceled their week 1 game, and I don't think it counts as a forfeit. It's tough because, again, every game counts somehow in this new playoff matrix that I have yet to completely understand. So I'm curious to see how that works or doesn't work for teams. Especially maybe not so much the losing team, because if you're going to forfeit games or cancel games, you're probably not making the playoffs anyways. But if you're the team that was supposed to play them, that's a win that you don't get. So that could really hurt somebody in the long run. And I'm not a fan of that if that's what happens. The last conference I'm going to touch on is the Clover Belt. So it's kind of my northernmost territory that I deal with officially. Like I said earlier, I went and watched Regis play on Thursday. They beat Bloomer 49-0. Durand beat Prescott 34-21. Mondovi beat Osceola 42-27. Loyal topped Neilsville 50-0. Again, that's an interesting, rivalry game, Loyal Greenwood and Neilsville there. Glenwood City beat Osseo Fairchild 41-0. St. Croix Central topped Elk Mound 21-14. Fall Creek beat Barron 21-7. And Cadott beat Stanley Boyd 48-6. And those are all of our scores. I'm looking at our time here. We're getting close to about our 45-minute mark. I'll see if I can wind this down by then. Mostly, I wanted to give myself practice reading scores. There's a lot of scores to read. I probably covered too much territory. And I thought it was also interesting to kind of walk you through my Friday night or my end of the week football scheduling, because it's not easy. It's like I said, it's a wild puzzle that causes me a lot of stress at times, especially if there's weather in the forecast. If we have games that get moved around, I will put this out there. If you have games that get moved around, so you're not playing at the 7 o'clock time slot, please let me know. I do a good job of being aware of the R Schools conference calendar pages. I try to review those before I go out, but there's always a weird situation with officials or something that changes 1 or 2 ball games throughout the season, and I'm not always aware of that. But if all of a sudden, I remember a couple of years ago, we had a situation where either I had a big game or I had to go someplace, but I saw that Prairie du Chien had a 3 o'clock ball game. So I asked Logan if she would, if she minded running to that. So she went to that for a half and then came back to the home area-ish for the rest of the night. We did our part to try to see all the games that we could. And she's typically willing to go out shoot, do good work, and share those images that we find as well. Anyways, this coming week, I've kind of hinted at where we're going to go, but we're going to look everything over again just to make sure all of our P's are Q'd and our dots are tied, whatever it is. I had a good week too. Logan had a really, really good week too. We're going to talk about that in our top 5 photos episode. I think it's important and fun to share some of these best moments from the week. It's a different way to do it, and I hope that again you tune in, listen, argue with us about some of our choices. That's okay. If you have ideas for us, if you like what we've been doing here with the GX3 Media podcast, please let us know. You can click a like, you can give it a subscribe. That's fine. If you know somebody that would love to listen to this, share those links, spread this thing around. We're trying to do this to tell stories a different way. And I want to make sure that I'm trying to find my voice in this process as well. I want to bring in news, but again, let's face it, today is Monday. By the time you watch this or listen to this, it could be Tuesday or Wednesday. Football scores from last week at that point in time are 4 or 5 days old. You already know what happened. Especially if you're only focused on 1 or 2 teams, you knew what happened by the time Friday closed. But if I can give you some different insight as to how we do things and some other little anecdotal notes about some of our football in the area, then I'll do that. And the same thing with some of our other sports. I also need to be diligent in preparing to talk about things that are not football. After this week, we're going to have some real volleyball, hopefully some soccer, tennis, golf. I have a good plan in place. I'm excited for it. We're going to have a great week of sports and hopefully a full week of good night rests. It's important to get at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep, probably closer to 8 hours. I'm going to try to do that tonight. That way I'm ready to go for the week. It's a short week. Again, today is Labor Day. And if you're listening to this today, that means I did work on Labor Day. That's probably the best way to celebrate Labor Day is by working. Anyways, I'm Nate Byer. This is the GX3 Media podcast, the Extended Cut Line, a podcast by GX3 Media. I forgot that earlier. Again, we're going to make mistakes. Thanks for listening or watching or paying attention. If you have any questions, throw them our way. I'll do our best to answer those. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great sports week, everybody.